The global community has failed to address increasingly dangerous collective action problems. We're experiencing this real time for climate change, microplastic pollution, antibiotic resistance, massive population displacement. These unfolding tragedies of the commons should not be surprising, considering that collective responsibility has not been taken seriously at any level, local, national, or global. In fact, many social philosophers are skeptical that there is such a thing as collective responsibility. That for them, collective responsibility does not exist. There is only individual responsibility. The skepticism is particularly severe when it comes to the market. The marketplace is undergirded by a legal and institutional infrastructure. But despite this infrastructure, for the most part, they believe that it lacks collective intentionality because it is comprised of random transactions from a multitude of economic agents. And so what I'd like to do this morning is to make the case for collective economic responsibility, and of course, by extension, collective responsibility, using Thomistic ontology. So my paper proposes a Thomistic ontology of collective economic responsibility. We see a sharp contrast between the individualist view of collective responsibility versus the substantive view of collective responsibility. So in the literature, they distinguish between individualist versus the substantive view of collective responsibility. With St. Thomas's twofold order of the universe, I propose that not only can we hold the invisible hand to account, but we can also individuate collective economic responsibility. And I will make my case using three conceptual building blocks. The first conceptual building block I would like to use is the nature of participated existence. Unlike God's ipsum esse subsistence, it is not in the nature of creatures to exist. Their existence is merely a conferred, created existence. Their existence is merely a participation in the existence of the necessary being, God. Existential goodness is the goodness that comes about just by being, that is, by the act of existence alone. However, creatures do more than just exist. They also act or unfold according to their created, conferred nature. And as creatures act or unfold according to their conferred nature, they reflect other dimensions of the goodness of God that they embody besides the act of existence. They reveal even more of God's goodness as they move from their potency to act. In other words, creatures reflect and communicate God's goodness according to their mode of being and operation. In the case of humans, their mode of being and operation is unique because of their moral agency. The second building block I would like to use is relational esse. Creatures are embedded within a tight web of interdependence with other creatures. Relations with other creatures are constitutive of creaturely existence. Participated existence is characterized by a relational esse, It has an intrinsic expansiveness by virtue of its relational character. It is expansive as it moves from potency to act. Thus, in the case of humans, their mode of being and operation is not merely intelligent and free, but also relational. These three elements of humans' mode of being and operation become even more potent as they mutually strengthen each other even further and create synergy. Free will plus intelligence strengthens relations. These are relations that are freely and intelligently chosen. Free will and intelligence together, they strengthen relations. Freedom allows humans to deliberately choose their relations and not merely be limited to relations that are given by nature. In contrast, non-human creatures' relations are set by nature. This latitude in the selection of human relations becomes even more significant once freedom works in tandem with the other human faculty of intelligence. Thus, what we end up with are relations that are freely and intelligently chosen by the human person. Note that these freely and intelligently chosen relations are not merely with other creatures, but with other humans who are also freely and intelligently choosing their relations as part of their mode of being and operation. So what we have is a convergence of free and intelligent self-selecting themselves into various relationships of their own choosing and for shared ends. Such free and intelligent self-selected relations are formed in pursuit of common goals. There is a purpose or purposes behind these relations because they are the result of free and intelligent choices. They are intentional relations. Moreover, such self-selected relations in their own turn are part of and reinforce further the person's movement from potency to act. There are no limits to the number, scope, and purpose of clusters of human relations that intelligently and deliberately self-select themselves into groups. There are no limits either to the permutation of how these human relations collaborate with each other. And of course, even the resulting groups themselves may yet go into further rounds of establishing new relations with other groups. And so we end up with ever larger human ensembles. The resulting groups from these self-selected collaborative relations are not merely the aggregation of individual relations. They are synergies in which each whole is greater than the sum of its individual parts. There is a new real entity that emerges, contrary to Aristotle's view that relations are not substances. Borrowing from the ontology of critical realism and sociology, we can call these resulting groups emergents. We can call them emergents. That is, entities that exhibit properties and behaviors that are not present in its individual members, but which arise at the level of the whole. Examples of emergence that come to mind are the one body of Christ, 1 Corinthians 12, or Adam Smith's invisible hand, and the body politic. For the rest of this paper, I refer to these resulting human collectives as emergent human ensembles. Smaller or lower ensembles are part of larger or higher ensembles to which they contribute, from which they draw benefits, and for which they are partly or jointly responsible. In fact, these nested ensembles occasion the emergence of distinct types of prudence according to their respective ends. So we have from the Summa Theologiae the various, this quote from how there is simple prudence, which is directed to one's own good, and then there's the domestic prudence, directed to the common good of the home, and he points out to a third kind of prudence, political prudence, directed to the common good of the state or kingdom. So we have these different emergent human ensembles. Emergent human ensembles deliberately choose their proximate telos and then act collectively in pursuit of such goals. That they banded together deliberately and intelligently and in pursuit of a shared end is a basis for ascribing responsibility to these emergents because they can act to bring about desired states of affairs. Moral responsibility stems not merely from willing, but also from causing. Free and intelligent relations are not random or purposeless. They are deliberately made and sustained. They have a purpose, an end for which such relation is pursued and maintained. After all, relations are resource and time intensive. How do we know that there are indeed emergent human ensembles, that we are not merely dealing simply with aggregative individual relations? So I would like to appeal to St. Thomas of how effects reveal their underlying causes. Again, we have from the Summa Contra Gentiles his point that causes are known by their effects. And so I propose that the invisible hand is known to exist by its effects, as in the case of the butcher, baker, and brewer, and the inadvertent social benefits they produce in provisioning the rest of the community, despite their original intention of merely pursuing their own self-interest. We see the much touted strength of the market in its ability to approximate allocative efficiency more than any other social institution. Similarly, our current collective action problems are the effects that alert us to their underlying source in emergent human ensembles, including the marketplace. Indeed, the invisible hand is not merely a metaphor, but a real phenomenon. We know there are emergent human ensembles in God's order of creation by their effects. Intensive, intelligent relationality leads to emergent human ensembles that can bear moral responsibilities. Emergent human ensembles' mode of being and operation reflects their underlying human mode of being and operation, anchored in a relational essay. They are also free, intelligent, relational, expansive. After all, they are formed by intelligent, dynamic, and relational, expansive humans, by incarnate intellects. Because of their constitutive, expansive, intellectual, and free humans, the resulting emergent human ensembles are also intelligent, free, and relational. And as I had mentioned earlier, just as humans are expansive and form free and intelligent relations, emergent ensembles also seek out and form relations with other emergent human ensembles. So, with these two conceptual building blocks, first, the nature of participated existence, second, relational essay, we are now ready to consider the collective nature of the tasks and responsibilities that arise as individual humans and as individual humans move from potency to act. And so I go to the third conceptual building block, and that is St. Thomas's twofold order of the universe, comprised of an external order and an internal order. Consider his external order. The entire universe is oriented toward God as its end. This is the external order in St. Thomas's twofold order of the universe. This is how the universe as a whole reflects and communicates the goodness of God that it embodies. And of course, footnote here, important footnote, that even the universe in its entirety will still not be able to reflect and communicate the fullness of God's goodness. I just want to cover myself and put that footnote. So God wills into existence the universe and its constitutive creatures, which in turn find their perfection and completion in God as their end. So that's the external order. So consider the internal order. God provides all the means and the creatures that are essential to the whole universe to reach its final end in God. And despite the wide diversity and profusion of creatures, they are nonetheless all ordered to bring about the universe's perfection in its final end in God. Together, they constitute the internal order of the universe. Why is getting to the external order important? God's goodness is much more fully revealed by the universe taken as a whole than by its individual part. Again, may I bring your attention Summa Contra Gentiles, where St. Thomas notes that in terms of the reason of the order of the universe, the whole is ever better than its parts and is the end of the part. It is the group as a whole that will eventually move toward the final end, not the aggregated individual movements of single creatures. The whole universe together reflects God's goodness much more fully than its constituent parts' perfection of their share of God's goodness. This culminates with the attainment of the internal order and then finally the external order of the universe. In fact, the internal order is oriented towards serving the external order achieve this larger end. This is how the internal order reflects and communicates its share of God's goodness that it embodies. Only the collective can attain this desired state of affairs. It becomes the moral responsibility of emergent human ensembles to effect this desired state of affairs, not by the automatic mechanical unfolding of nature, but by humans' free, intelligent, and collective choices. Clearly, there is a collaborative dimension to St. Thomas's twofold order of the universe. Effecting the requisite internal order as a prelude to the even larger task of bringing the whole universe to its final end is not merely an aggregative amalgamation of individual creatures acting independently of each other, especially not with the presence of free, intelligent, and relational human beings. The entire process, from beginning to end, is necessarily a free, intelligent, and concerted effort. Such a cumulative act unfolds through a wide variety of emergent human ensembles that bear collective responsibility. So I am running out of time. I have 7 minutes. And so what I will do is to simply quickly go over and list some further features of the collective rather than the mere aggregative nature of the universe's movement from potency to act. One observation has to do with the human community and how the Blessed Trinity is the paradigm for the human community. So that would also be an important feature of the collective rather than the mere aggregate nature of our movement from potency to act. I'm already quickly summarizing here. The second feature I'd like to note is how human ensembles participate in God's governance and providence. And so we are able, individuals, but also human ensembles, participate as God provides for the human beings. Third is how emergent human ensembles are conduits of divine providence. God conserves and provides for humans and other creatures through each other, including human ensembles. A fourth feature I noted is that intellectual virtues have a large collaborative dimension. Just think of knowledge creation. Knowledge creation is really a collective endeavor. It's not merely an aggregated process. It has increasing returns to scale. Critical mass is important for knowledge creation. So that's an example right there of a collaborative, a cumulative nature and not merely a mere addition. And in the same way, the fifth feature I'd like to to point out is how collective agency plays a role in the expansion of freedom of action. Freedom of action also requires collaborative work and cooperation. Thinking of quickest way of doing this is liberalism. In liberalism, you give maximum freedoms to individuals that are consistent with everybody else being able to enjoy the same degree of freedom. So in many ways, if we get our act together, we will be able to expand our freedom of action. And so I just want to point out that these are just, I I develop them further in the paper, but here's some examples of how the universe's movement from potency to act is in fact collaborative rather than aggregative. That in fact it is a substantive view of collective responsibility rather than an individualist view of responsibility. I thank you for your patience. It's a very technical, paper, but I hope it is a contribution in understanding that we can, in fact, provide an ontology for collective responsibility, and by extension, collective economic responsibility as well. So my apologies for a very technical exposition. Thank you.